You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Kotzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Hey, Brain, happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, Josh.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody. It's, as we're recording this, it's the fifth night of Hanukkah, so I'm sure that everybody's gotten their fill of fried chicken and potato latkes and donuts and all kinds of other delicious Hanukkah goodies. And you should, because it's a festive time of year, so hopefully everybody is having a safe and wonderful Hanukkah. And, Brain, you know, it wouldn't be Hanukkah if it didn't feature the Dolphins losing a football game. The Dolphins.
It's that time of year.
It is. The Dolphins fall 33-27 to the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. But, you know, I'm not, listen, I get it. You never like to lose a football game, and it's obviously disappointing, particularly given that the Dolphins had an opportunity to get off to a little bit better start than they did, and then they sort of made some mistakes early on and left some points on the field, which, you know, wasn't good. But they took a 10-0 lead, and they were looking really good and had the Chiefs really locked down for a while. Then the Chiefs did what the Chiefs do, and it sort of exploded, scoring 3 touchdowns in a period of about 3 minutes of actual game time, which was pretty disappointing. And from there, it was, after that happened, it pretty much felt like it was over. But the Dolphins, they didn't give up. They kept fighting. They hung in there, and they ended up falling 33-27 to the defending Super Bowl champs and the team that is probably the favorite to be the Super Bowl champs again this year. But I came away from this game feeling very, very sort of proud of these guys and encouraged with the direction that the organization is heading in. I feel confident in Tua Tagovailoa, and we'll get into that and to why I feel that way here shortly. But I'm starting to feel good about him, and the way he kind of engineered a couple of those drives late in the game was impressive. And so I'm feeling good about that. And, you know, falling short against the Super Bowl champs and the team that is, you know, by and large perceived to be the best team in the NFL right now is really not something to hang your head about, especially when you only end up losing by 1 possession. And I just feel this was a game where I felt that even though the Dolphins lost, and even though it's frustrating and disappointing to lose a game, any game, in the thick of a playoff race, this was a game where I really felt that this was an organization that was moving in the right direction. And if you follow me on Twitter, which you should be doing, at Amplified to Rock, he is, of course, at Aaron the Brain, at Aaron the Brain, the show, at Same Old Dolphins. You should be following all of those accounts. You saw that I tweeted out Sunday that I just don't know how you come away from this game without just being encouraged about the direction that this organization is headed in, and proud of the 53 men who were out there fighting for the aqua and orange on Sunday. I thought they just really did a great job, even though they ultimately came up short. And obviously you would like them to have done a better job so that they could have won this game. But it was exactly what we said going in. This was a game where there was zero margin for error. And if you weren't perfect, the Chiefs were going to find a way to exploit your mistakes, and that's what they did, and that's why we lost. But I take a look at where this team was 12 months ago versus where they are now, and they're clearly moving in the right direction. And so I was, while disappointed, I came away going, okay, that's a bummer, but we got 3 more games left, and as long as we win those 3 games, there's a very good shot, or even 2 of those 3 games, there's a very good shot that your Miami Dolphins are headed to the playoffs. So I was, I came away still pretty optimistic in spite of the loss. Brain, you don't feel that way, though. You're muted, Brain.
There we go. Sorry, either, garage door was open. I didn't want the ambient noise. Anyway, I don't feel discouraged by what we saw in this game, but nothing that I saw in this game was particularly encouraging, unless we are just setting the bar really low, which that's fine, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago when we were a 500 team or we were a below 500 team and we were saying, well, look at how far this team has come from a year ago where we're 1-3, but we're playing teams close. We are in the thick of a playoff race. This is not the time that I want to be taking moral victories because we lost a game by 1 possession. Look, and this was not like, I've heard a lot of, we played the Chiefs close. Well, first off, the Chiefs have been playing close games for over a month now, and they're not all against powerhouse teams. They beat the Panthers by 2, they beat the Broncos by 6, they beat the Bucks by 3, they beat the Raiders by 4. I mean, they've been playing close games now. This is their 5th 1 possession victory in a row. So it's not like the Dolphins did anything that was super impressive. And more so, this was not a game where like the Broncos played the Chiefs and had a lead in the 4th quarter. Or the Panthers played the Chiefs and it was a relatively close game the whole way. This was a game where, albeit the Dolphins got off to a good start, the defense set the tone, the Chiefs made some pretty bad mistakes, but the Dolphins, were opportunistic and took advantage of those mistakes. And you've got to give them credit for that. And they forced some of those mistakes, and you've got to give them credit for that. But then they got completely dominated for relatively half the football game. for at least a quarter and a half, it was a complete blowout, and the Chiefs scored 30 points in a row. And this was a game where the Dolphins were essentially beaten soundly, but then they kind of made it interesting at the end. And then as soon as they kind of made it interesting and they needed to make a stop to really make it interesting, the Chiefs put the game away. The Dolphins made it a little interesting. It wasn't super easy for the Chiefs, but this was not a game where I think if you're a Chiefs fan and you were watching this game, I don't think there was a moment in this game where you really felt, this game, that you were really in danger of losing this game. This was not a really tight football game. It was just a game that the Dolphins kind of made interesting at the end because they put up some late points and they didn't give up. And I give them credit. If there's one thing that's encouraging here, it's that the Dolphins showed a lot of fight. And again, if we're looking for encouragement, the Dolphins have had games like these in the past where it's late November or early December and they're going up against a really good football team and it's that quote unquote measuring stick or that quote unquote statement game. And we get absolutely blown out of the water. And when the Chiefs went up 30-10, it felt like that. It felt like, all right, this is the Baltimore Ravens game all over again. We're going to get, we're just going to fade. We're going to fall apart. We're going to quit or whatever. I give them credit. They did not quit. They showed a lot of fight and they made it interesting and they deserve praise for that. But let's not blow it out of proportion. There's nothing that they did in this game that should make you feel like they're any better than what you've seen.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that I want to say, because it would be one thing if this was a Miami Dolphins team that this season was playing at the peak of its powers with all of a full complement of weapons available to them, and this is what happened. This was a team that was playing without their top 3 running backs, and let's be honest, I don't know that having Myles Gaskin and Matt Breida would have made a difference in this game, or Savon Ahmed. I don't know that really would have made a difference in how the Dolphins approached this, but they played this without Preston Williams. They played the entire game without Devontae Parker because he went down fairly early in this one after he dropped the touchdown pass, but whatever. They played it without Devontae Parker. They were playing without Kyle Van Noy. They were playing without a Landon Roberts. And the Chiefs took advantage on 2 of the touchdowns. They scored touchdowns on plays where Bobby McCain, who was part of locking down Tyreek Hill for large portions of this game, he was off the field, and that's when the Chiefs struck. When Bobby McCain was out injured and Fedgelum was out there, and that's when Kansas City struck. That's when they took advantage of it. This was a measuring stick game. We said that going in. And what we saw was a team with elite talent on the offensive side of the ball versus a team without elite talent. On one side, you've got Patrick Mahomes, who is an elite quarterback in this league, who is surrounded by, has 2 elite weapons on his team in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. He also has a couple of very good running backs in Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell. And they've got a very full complement of very fast and talented wide receivers on that offense. On the other side of the ball, you have the Miami Dolphins, who have Tua Tagovailoa, who is a promising quarterback, who is, I think, week over week showing signs of improvement and game understanding and really like the nuanced ability to make plays. That's happening. You can see that process beginning with Tua. So you've got a quarterback with a lot of upside. But other than that, he's got average at best weapons around him. Maybe Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker notwithstanding. Like, you can say that those 2 pieces are above average, but everybody else, I mean, at the best, these are average guys at this point in the National Football League. So that's why you've got 2 offenses that look completely different. And we knew that going in. And, the defense was banged up as well. So you take a look at these 2 teams side by side right now, you can only wonder what this game looks like if the Dolphins are playing with a full complement of talent on both sides of the ball. But the thing to take away is that a year ago, this team isn't even close at all in this game. When you say that the Chiefs were uncomfortable and out of sorts at the beginning of the game, they were uncomfortable and out of sorts at the beginning of the game because the Dolphins made them uncomfortable and out of sorts at the beginning of the game. The Dolphins defense made Patrick Mahomes make those mistakes. Maybe not the fumble, maybe that was a brain fart on his own, but the Dolphins influenced these things. They were getting hands up. They were deflecting passes to get picked off. Jerome Baker was chasing Patrick Mahomes down to take a 30-yard sack, right? The Dolphins made this team uncomfortable, and then the Dolphins got banged up a little bit, and they lost focus for a moment. And the Chiefs, being the kind of team that they are, were able to take advantage of that. It's not like, I get being disappointed, like you said, but And again, I also get not wanting to take moral victories. It's like, whatever. But there is, I think, a lot, when you look at this game, not just as a sort of standalone thing, but you take a look at this game in the broader narrative of what all of this season and all of last season add up to, and you see a team that is on that trajectory that is headed in a good direction. And that's why I come away from this game feeling positive. Now, if the Dolphins go out and lose to New England and lose to Las Vegas and lose to Buffalo and finish the season 8-8, this is a very different conversation. But today, the 8-5 Miami Dolphins, with 3 games to go, 2 definitely super winnable games, and then a tough game on the finale, but a game where Buffalo may very well be resting half of their roster. I mean, these could be 3 winnable games. You could be looking at a team that ends the season 11-5. It's not It's not outside the realm of possibility. So you've got to feel good, even if individual performances taken on their own maybe left you feeling kind of meh after this game. The entire thing, the fight, the heart that these guys showed to come back, even when they were down 20 points, when Kansas City had blown the doors off of them, this team turned around and said, no, we're not going out like that. And they put up a fight. And that was something I think that all Dolphin fans can sort of hold their heads high about, even though the end result and the narrative of the game maybe is one that, broadly speaking, doesn't speak that well about the Dolphins, but in fact speaks well about how good Kansas City is. And that's okay. But from where I sit as a Dolphin fan, I walk away from this going, okay, we lost the least important of the final 4 games of the season to the best team in the league. We made some mistakes. We needed to be perfect. We weren't perfect. As a result of that, we got punished for it. But then we turned things around and fought on our own terms and, made a game of it. Yeah, maybe we didn't get as close as we would have liked, and we didn't quite get all the way back there. And when we had an opportunity to really open the door, Kansas City, like they do, they made the big play that they needed to make on 4th and 1 to essentially allow them to put the game away. And that's what elite teams are capable of doing. And the Dolphins are not an elite team yet. And that's okay. That is okay in the narrative of where this team is right now.
Right. But again, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, and I'm not saying that anything, I'm not saying that I'm discouraged by what I saw. I'm saying that, the Dolphins are kind of who we thought they were, and that is a pretty good team, not a great team. I don't think that they needed to play perfect to win this game at all, because I think the Chiefs played poorly. I think this is one of the worst performances that the Chiefs have had all year. And yes, the Dolphins defense is part of that, and they deserve credit. But, I mean, no matter how good the Dolphins defense plays, when you turn the ball over 4 times, you're having a bad game. I don't know how, if the Dolphins come out and Tua throws 4 interceptions against the Pittsburgh Steelers, yes, we're going to sit there and we're going to acknowledge that the Steelers have a good defense, but we're not going to sit here and give Tua a pass because he played a good defense. 4 turnovers is 4 turnovers. It's unacceptable. So it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs played some great game. The Kansas City Chiefs played a terrible game by their standards, and they gave the Dolphins opportunities to win, and the Dolphins didn't take advantage. They didn't need to be perfect, but, they were far from the Dolphins were basically what they've been all year, and the Chiefs played down closer to the Dolphins level, and still, the Dolphins didn't have the ball after the Chiefs threw that long touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill to go up 21-10. The Dolphins never had the ball in a 1-possession football game where they could tie or take the lead. So It wasn't like this was a close game. They were beaten soundly. They made it a little interesting at the end. I give them credit for fighting. I give them credit for making it interesting at the end. But at the end of the day, there's nothing overwhelmingly impressive about this, and there's nothing super encouraging about it. And I don't want to sit here, before the game, we said no matter what happens in this game, we're not going to overreact to it. And we're not, because it's one game, and literally anything can happen in one game. And what happened in the one game was pretty much it was what you would expect. Kansas City beat them soundly, but did not blow them out. That's pretty much what we expected. So what I would say is this was fine. This
Yeah.
This was fine. It wasn't. There's no reason to come out of this and beat our chest and say like, yeah, we're on the right path. You should feel like you're on the right path because you're 8-5. You should feel that, but it doesn't. But you don't need to feel that coming off of a loss. There was nothing about this game that would make me want to beat my chest as a Dolphins fan. Nothing that came out of this game makes me feel like we're going to go into next week's game against New England and dominate that game. I'm very concerned about the remaining 3 games of the season. And until they absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, prove that they are a legit playoff team, I'm going to have those concerns. And like I said, nothing that happened in this game was all that. I mean, even Tua, like I'm very happy that Tua turned it around and put a couple of really nice drives together in the fourth quarter. I thought it was really impressive that he did it without Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker, that he did it with Adam Shaheen and Lynn Bowden and Patrick Laird, and Malcolm Perry. That's cool. That's great. That looks great. But there was also a stretch in that game in the third quarter where he looked awful. And I think it's not responsible of us as, like, if you're trying to be an objective fan, I don't think it's responsible for you to look at this game and completely ignore the fact that in the third quarter, Tua was awful and he looked rattled.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you're right. He did have stretches of this game where he didn't look great. And I think that is something.
No, he looked awful. He looked awful.
Okay, fine.
And it's
but that's something
you
can't
just like, and I'm all for Tua, and I believe Tua is going to be a really, really good quarterback, but I'm not going to sit here and just look at the fact that he had 2 really good drives in the fourth quarter and overlook the fact that if he played better in the third quarter, we win the game.
Of course. But do you look at this performance that Tua put together as a whole, look at the game as a whole, and compare it with the rest of his body of work over the course of this season? And do you walk away, particularly with those last couple of drives, do you walk away and think, okay, I can see it. I can see who this guy is going to be. That is the point. Let me read to you.
I see. Well, what I'm going to say, let me answer that question first.
Okay, go ahead.
Because what I see is the same thing that I said I saw last week. And it's the same thing that I saw in college. The same strengths, the same weaknesses. I see a quarterback that seems to be very streaky. That when he gets into a role and a rhythm and he's feeling it and he's acting on instinct, the instincts take over and you see that he has elite level instincts. And that's something that I think a lot of quarterbacks don't have. When we had Ryan Tannehill for 7 or 8 years, that was something that we consistently had an issue with, is that Ryan Tannehill looked like a quarterback that he was always learning to play the quarterback position. He didn't have those quarterback instincts. He looked like he's talented. He can make all the plays and he can make all the throws, but he never had that it factor where when things broke down that he was going to, rely on these great instincts. His instincts were garbage. And and what you'd find is in the big moments, he'd be garbage. And that was what worried us about Tannehill, and it's ultimately why he's not here. And I see the opposite in Tua. But at the same time, I also see limitations. Like his arm strength is a little bit of a concern. I think it's adequate and I think he'll be fine with it. But because he doesn't have a really strong arm, it is more difficult. He has to be perfect with his anticipation and his accuracy and the way that he sees the field and his ability to make the reads. And what I'm seeing in him right now, and he's a rookie and he's going to get better because The thing that is most impressive about him is the way that he does learn and pick things up. And so I'm very encouraged.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
when things break down and the play is not that, maybe the coverage is a team throws something different at him that he wasn't expecting to see and he's surprised, and the offensive line doesn't give him perfect protection, we're seeing him, hold on to the ball too long, think too much, take sacks where he shouldn't be taking sacks. And those are important. Those are important things that he needs to get better at. But again, he's young and I accept that. But at the same time, you can't just laud the guy for the things that he does great and ignore the things that he does wrong.
Absolutely. But
you got to get the whole picture of it. I feel confident in Tua going forward. I think he's going to be really good, especially I think really where you're going to see him turn the corner, it might not be this season. I think he needs a full off season. I think you
agree,
need
100%.
to get him better weapons, and he needs a full off season of practicing with those weapons and looking at defenses. I think that's all going to be a huge piece of the puzzle going forward. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and just, ignore mistakes that Tua makes, or when he makes a deep throw that hangs. And look, apologies to Jakeem Grant, because while he had a horrific drop early in the game on the Dolphins' first drive, and he does some questionable things and he makes things an adventure, and this was another bad Jakeem game, I got very upset at Jakeem Grant on the Tua interception, because I felt like, because at first glance I thought it was a drop, and that led to the interception. But in looking at it closer and in looking at it in slow motion, first off, it was a terrible throw. The ball hung up. It was super underthrown. And secondly, the defender got his hand in there and broke the play up and forced the incomplete pass. So, Tua deserved that interception. That was a bad throw.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not like Tua is some shiny golden god back there who is playing to perfection every moment of every game. That's certainly not what we're seeing. How much of the moments where he looks bad are fully on his shoulders, and how much of it is the line not giving him time and his receivers not being able to generate any space, so he has nowhere to go with the ball, so he has to hold it and take a sack, or situations like that. I think that probably factors in a little bit. How much of it is him maybe not getting the right read on the coverage situation, and so he's got a guy that is open but can't get through his progression fast enough to get the ball out of his hand? That is part of it. But this is a guy that is maturing. But the fact is that he was able to put those couple of drives at the end of the game together when he's on the drive, the final touchdown drive where Gesicki gets hurt. These are the people that touched the ball from that point on. Patrick Laird, Mac Hollins, Lynn Bowden Jr., Durham Smythe, Laird, Hollins, Laird, Tua scrambles, DeAndre Washington, Tua keeps it for a touchdown. Most people that are fans of casual fans in the National Football League have heard of maybe one of those people, outside of Tua. But and he made that happen with the weapons that he had, and he elevated those players around him on that drive. And that is, I think, what makes you walk away from it going, okay, great. I'm feeling encouraged based on that. And listen, I don't want to say the Dolphins played some lights out game, but I also, there's no shame in losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. There's no shame.
That's what I'm saying.
And
no shame, but nothing to write home about.
Sure, but again, when you look at it, I have been this season in particular really sort of looking at everything step by step, moment by moment, trying to avoid the micro and try to keep looking at things from more of a macro sense, because this is a team that is on a trajectory, and this is the second year of the rebuild, and they're in the thick of the playoff race with now 3 games to go, right? They're arriving a little bit earlier than expected, but it's very clear that in the hierarchy of teams in the National Football League right now, or if you want to, let's just look at the AFC, because I think the Dolphins are actually better than teams that are going to make the playoffs in the NFC. But if you look at the hierarchy of teams in the AFC, the Miami Dolphins are very clearly on a talent level right now at the bottom. They're right on the bubble of the playoffs. I actually think they might even be a little bit higher in the standings than you would think that they would be just looking at them on paper. I think they've kind of overachieved, and that's credit to the job that Brian Flores is doing with this team this season. So I'm not saying, wow, what a great game the Dolphins played. Wow, wow, wow. They really gave the Chiefs all they could handle. I do walk away saying the defense of the Miami Dolphins is legit, because they did play a very good game against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, when Patrick Mahomes has thrown 2 interceptions all season and throws 3 in a game against your team, whether it's because they're on deflections or, a great play from Xavier Howard, the fact is he threw 3 interceptions and your team made that happen, right? So that is something to be proud of, and it is something that the Dolphins can hang their hat on, and they should be excited about, and I'm all excited about. Everybody that follows the Miami Dolphins knows that clearly this was a team that upgraded on the defensive side of the ball last offseason. And everybody knows that going into next season, this upcoming offseason, the Dolphins need to upgrade on the offensive side of the ball. And I think adding those pieces are going to take this team from being on the bubble to, at the very least, being in that place where when we get to a year from now, I would expect the Dolphins to be probably even a little bit higher up than they are right now, probably finding themselves in a bit more of a comfortable position and maybe a tighter race for the AFC East crown. And that's what I walked away from this game feeling, because when you look at things from the macro sense, again, you can clearly see improvement when you look at the Dolphins losing 33-27 in week 14 of 2020 from the team that lost 59-10 to Baltimore in week 1 of 2019. There is growth. That is what I'm saying.
And 100%, and we're going to put this to bed. I just want to say one more thing on it, and then we'll get into the good, bad, and the ugly. I just don't want to do this. Yes, the macro is important, and we've all acknowledged that the Dolphins have made growth and that they're moving in the right direction. We're happy with where they are at right now at 8-5. If you would have told me, if you'd have told any Dolphins fan prior to the start of the season that they'd be 8-5 going into the last 3 games with a chance to make the playoffs, they'd be ecstatic about it. They'd be stoked and be like, yeah, I can't wait to get there. And we've been so excited to get here. And what I said coming into this game was that now we are here. The time to be happy about the macro, we can put that in the rear view until we get to the end of the season. At this point, when you're 8-4, the expectation should no longer be moral victories and being happy with where you're at.
Of course.
The expectation is you are now in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. This is a 4-game play. We've said that all along. That you get to these 4 games at 8-4 and you're looking at a 4-game playoff. Well, you're in the playoffs now. Let's act like we're in the playoffs and we're not just some team that's happy to be here.
Absolutely.
So look, while I completely agree that we've made this progress, I just don't think we keep doing this. We did this after the Denver game.
Yeah, oh, sure.
Where we said, this is what we're going to do now, is we're going to be really excited every time the Dolphins lose, or every time the Dolphins win, but then every time they lose, we're going to say, yeah, well, we're still way better than we were last year, and we're playing with house money. And that may be the case, but And I don't think that, I know that's not how Brian Flores looks at it. I know that's not how the team looks at it. So as a fan, I would like to look at it the way that I'm sure Brian Flores is looking at it and having a higher expectation.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I think against any other team in the National Football League, I think the conversation coming out of this game is different. And I think any kind of loss in any of the final 3 games of this season, I think the conversation coming out of the game is different. I just think up against the best team in the league, giving them, just giving them the what for and playing some strong defense against them, and showing glimpses of what this team could be in the future. I think there is room for there to be some satisfaction even in defeat from this particular game. Dolphins lose against New England next week, there's no moral victory. Dolphins lose to Vegas, no moral victory. Dolphins lose to Buffalo, probably no moral victory there. But, I think coming out of the Kansas City game, it was just a little bit of a different thing. And I think just because of game flow in general, you can kind of go, all right, okay. Well, good fight, guys. Good fight. Now we're on to New England. And I think that that's okay. And I think that's what we're going to do. We lost this game, and whether it was because of injuries or because just at the end of the day, we just don't have the talent to go to the races with Kansas City, then that's just what it is. Because ultimately the way to beat Kansas City, and we said it in the preview show, is you got to score more points than them. And while that is always the goal in a football game, it's a lot more difficult to do when you're doing it against, when you're up against Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce is going to be the first tight end in the history of the league to lead the league in receiving yards by the end of the season. So anyway, we're going to get into the good and the bad and the ugly here in just a moment. It'll be kind of a truncated good, bad, and ugly segment because we sort of went into an extended discussion before the game. But before we do that, a reminder to everybody to head over to Apple Podcasts and download, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Seriously, take a moment, leave us a positive review, leave us a 5-star rating. We appreciate it. And thanks to everybody just for listening, but we'd love it if, it's the holiday season, you felt a little generous, you wanted to take that extra step for us. Appreciate it. And make sure that you are catching us on all the different podcast providers, all of them. We're there. If there's one that you prefer and we're not there yet, let us know. We'll do what we can to address that. Facebook.com/Same Old Dolphins is our Facebook page where you can give us a like. And we encourage you to go to DolphinsTalk.com each and every day for all of the latest Miami Dolphins news and information. It's your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. A lot of great podcast content up there on the Dolphins Talk site as well. And finally, I'm not going to forget this time, YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Head over to YouTube and do a search for Dolphins Talk, all one word, at YouTube, and you can subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel where this video and lots of other episodes of the show are located, and there will be adding new content all the time up there on the Dolphins Talk YouTube page. One other thing I want to talk about before we get into this good, the bad, and the ugly, Brain, we talked about that it's Hanukkah, and because it's Hanukkah, you want to make your significant other say Mazel Tov. And nothing is going to make them say Mazel Tov more than taking care of your grooming below the belt. And the way to do that this holiday season is to go to manscaped.com. Get yourself a lawnmower 3.0. Get yourself some ball toner and ball deodorant. Get yourself some the crop mop for emergency situations where you need to make sure you're smelling your best down there. They've also got always coming out with new products, whether it's shaving blades for your face, whether it's cologne, mints, all kinds of stuff that they got, ear and nose hair trimmers over there on Manscaped. Basically, it's the place to go to make sure that you, as a distinguished gentleman, look your best this holiday season. And you want to look your best above the belt. You want to look your best below the belt. So what you want to do is go to manscaped.com and enter the promo code DolphinsTalk. You're going to save 20% off of your order. You're going to get some free shipping. And, your special someone is going to look at you and they're going to say, baby, it's Hanukkah. And the real miracle of Hanukkah isn't that the oil lasted for 8 nights. It's that you finally got your below-the-belt grooming situation taken care of. Mazel tov, baby. Mazel tov. That's what they're going to say when you go to manscaped.com and enter the promo code DolphinsTalk to save 20% off of your order and get free shipping. Brain, how are your Hanukkah balls?
Look, it's Hanukkah season. Everybody likes a latke. Everybody wants some latkes. But you don't want your latkes to be greasy. So you gotta go to Manscaped because you don't want to have greasy latkes.
Unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Listen, you can't have greasy latkes because the applesauce, the sour cream slides right off. No good. So manscaped.com, promo code DolphinsTalk, save 20% and get free shipping on your order. Amazing. All right, Brain, let's talk a little bit about the good, the bad, and the ugly in this game. We'll try to go through this pretty quickly. Let's talk about the good. It's the defense, in particular, the secondary. How about Byron Jones got an interception? Xavier Howard is fifth.
And forced a fumble.
I mean, Byron Jones had himself a day. And quite frankly, when that secondary was at its full capacity, they were doing a pretty darn good job locking down a very difficult receiver to control in Tyreek Hill. And so I think that's my good, is the defense in general. They got into Patrick Mahomes' head. Patrick Mahomes thought he could outrun Jerome Baker on that 30-yard sack. And guess what? Sorry there, Patty boy. Jerome Baker's going to get you. And he did, for a 30-yard sack, which is pretty amazing, really. So defense is a good for me. Brain, other goods in this game for you?
I'm just going to...
Go ahead.
I'm going to echo the defense. I thought the defensive line played a great game. Raekwon Davis and Shaq Lawson in particular played a great game. Christian Wilkins, Emmanuel Ogbah. We did a great job of stopping Kansas City's run game, which is an underrated part of their offense. So I really like that. But how about the coming out party for Lynn Bowden Jr.?
He was next on my list.
The rookie, Lynn Bowden Jr., 7 catches for 82 yards, both season highs, both career highs, because he's in his rookie year. A couple of trick plays that didn't quite work out because remember Lynn Bowden played quarterback in college.
I think that payoff is coming, though. I feel like that payoff is coming, and I think it may be coming as soon as this week.
Well, I think that when you run it twice and it doesn't work, your opponent's probably going to prepare for it next week. So I think that might need to take a rest for a few weeks. It'll still stay in the playbook. They'll still work on it, but I don't know that that's something that you necessarily need to go back to the following week unless you see something particularly that sets alarms off in your head that says, hey, your opponent is leaving themselves open for it. It might work. But all things considered, it was a really good game for Lynn Bowden Jr. And I thought, especially look, Jakeem Grant went out with an injury, but I felt like, when Jakeem Grant went out and Lynn Bowden went in, although Lynn Bowden isn't quite as explosive as Jakeem Grant when he gets the ball in his hands, the fact is is that you can count on Lynn Bowden to get the ball in his hands because he's going to catch the ball. And it's just, I know, look, I said I was hard on Jakeem Grant because of that deep ball, but we've seen Jakeem Grant drop plenty of passes, and we saw him drop one early in this game that was extremely costly. And you didn't see that from Lynn Bowden Jr. So, I think we're at the point now that regardless of whether Jakeem Grant is healthy or not, I'm ready to see more of Lynn Bowden Jr. as that, whether you use the number 2 receiver, number 3 receiver, regardless, I think the snap count is going to increase each week from Lynn Bowden Jr. I thought he was a big time good for the Dolphins in this game.
Yeah, he was on the field for something like 72% of the offensive snaps in this game. And I think it's right. I think he's going to be somebody that the Dolphins are going to lean on a little bit here in these final couple of these final few games, because this is a guy that I think is also sort of it's, we can call it what it is. It's an audition for him for next year, because this is a guy, Dolphins are going to be looking to upgrade that wide receiver core. That's no surprise. Some big splashy free agents coming on the market. The names that you are hearing a lot about when, sort of going around is Allen Robinson. You're hearing Juju Smith-Schuster, Marvin Jones Jr. was a name that I heard today. There are these guys that are going to be out there, and the Dolphins are probably going to be bringing one of those guys in, and then they're also going to draft somebody. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see somebody like a Devontae Smith, come to Miami, with that Houston pick, early in the first round. And so the Dolphins are looking to upgrade that position. And, Preston Williams is going to come back. Devontae Parker is going to come back. And Lynn Bowden has got to, fight for his position in that wide receiving core. And I agree with you. We're going to see some more of him a lot, I think, over these next few weeks. Any other goods you want to mention before? You sort of gave us a pretty nice transition into the bad, which is the drops.
Well, I'll just say this. I think we've gotten to a point now where hopefully he's healthy, and we'll see him back out there next week, and he'll play a prominent role, down the stretch. But I think we've finally gotten to a point now where we feel like we have a really good high end, starting tight end in Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's now put it together now for a stretch of games, and we're looking at 4 touchdowns over the last 3, and something like 20 catches for 220 something yards in the last 4 games with 4 touchdowns. You put those together, extrapolate them over the course of a season. I realize it's only 4 games, but this is a guy who came out of the gate slow as a rookie, saw an incremental increase in his second year, and we've just seen him get a little bit better and a little bit better. And we saw him look really good at the beginning of the season with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, and then we saw him, kind of fall off the face of the earth for a few weeks because it seemed like, Tua wasn't necessarily looking his way. Well, now it looks like Tua's figured out that all you got to do is throw the ball within 8 feet of Mike Gesicki, and he's going to make something great happen. And he started to throw him the ball, and the last 2 games, you've now got 14 catches on 17 targets for 153 yards and 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. So I think we've finally gotten to the point now where it's not a matter of, maybe Mike Gesicki will break out. I think Mike Gesicki's broken out. I think he's probably a top 5 tight end in the league now going forward. And that's extremely important, because then we probably don't need to go into next year's draft or next year's offseason wondering if we need to upgrade the tight end position, because I think we feel really good about our tight end room right now.
Yeah, I think so. And they implement all of those tight ends and are using them pretty seamlessly. And I think it's actually worked. One of the things offensively that has actually worked really well for the Dolphins this season is their use of all of those tight ends. You had provided me a segue earlier to the bad, but you also just provided me a segue to the ugly. So let's hit that first. And that's, of course, the injuries. I just don't know that there's anything else that could be the ugly from this game. And Gesicki goes down with a shoulder injury. They haven't really identified yet as we record this Monday evening just how bad it is. It sounds like maybe he got one look at it and they want to get a second opinion about it, but it sounds like the worst case scenario is that this is a 4 to 6 month injury that's going to require surgery and rehab, and that's the end of his season, and we'll see Gesicki again for camp next year. The best case scenario is he's going to miss a couple of games and potentially be ready for a playoff game. And that's a situation where the injury is still there, but he's able to rehab it and play through it. And then potentially be able to hold off surgery for a few weeks. We don't know yet where that is, but it certainly sounds like he's going to miss some time. Jakeem Grant was dealing with a hamstring injury in this game, and we don't know. At this point, the report is that he is iffy for Sunday against the Patriots, so that's a question mark. And then, of course, Devontae Parker had a leg injury as well, and we don't know where we're at with that and whether he's going to be able to go on Sunday. In addition to that, Bobby McCain went off with an injury. Austin Jackson was shaken up at one point in this game. So it was just all around. It's like, when you get to this point of the season, the biggest thing that you want is to be able to get out of the games and be healthy, because even if you're not going to win the game, you at least want to be able to have all of your full complement of players available. But at this point, the Dolphins are, really calling in the reserves. They just re-signed Isaiah Ford to the practice squad, and at this rate it's almost a certainty that he's going to end up being activated on the main roster for next week's game. So that's your ugly. And then the bad, I would say it's the drops. Jakeem Grant had a bad drop. Devontae Parker couldn't bring in a 50-50 ball that you would normally expect him to bring in the end zone. So that is continuing to be a thing. And part of that is part of the drop. There was the one where it should have been, maybe should have been a PI when Jakeem Grant had the pass broken up that resulted in Tua's first interception. And then there was the long pass to Mac Hollins that Hollins couldn't bring in. Again, it was a problem with Tua on the long ball. So that's really more on Tua. But I think between the drops and special teams not having a very good day, Jason Sanders missing a 45-yard field goal, which it's a 45-yard field goal, but this is the National Football League and it was straight on. You would normally expect Sanders to hit that. And then, of course, giving up the punt return touchdown to McCole Hardman is pretty disappointing and pretty bad. It was just kind of a rough day all around for the Dolphins special teams unit. That's my bad for the game. Brain, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. Look, as great a game as the defense had in containing the Chiefs and holding them to 24 points on 13 possessions, which was better than I think anybody could have hoped for coming into this game, and forcing more turnovers than they allowed touchdowns, I think is great. But their game plan on that last drive of the game, I think was poor. You stop Kansas City on first down and they've got a second and long, and you've got Xavier Howard lined up 20 yards off of Clyde, Edwards-Helaire. And it's too easy. And I understand that you're going to say, that some people will say, well, hey, like when they were, playing a little bit tighter in coverage, then they're allowing themselves, they're putting themselves at risk of getting beat deep. Well, that's fine. You're in a game where you're down one score with just a couple minutes left to go. this is not the time in the game where you can afford to play bend but not break. You can't allow the opposing team to get first downs. If they're going to take a shot deep on you and get it, well, then kudos to them. But that is a much lower percentage chance of happening than it is lining 20 yards off of a guy and allowing them to just throw a little dink and dunk pass and it's an easy 9 yards. And that happened at least twice on the final drive of the game and set up. In one instance, it was a 2nd and 10 on the after the Dolphins had to run stuff on the first play of the drive. And and then Xavier Howard also had a face mask. So it's not only was a first down, but it turned into essentially a 25-yard gain. And then later in the drive, it ultimately set up that situation where Kansas City was able to go for it on 4th down because it was only 4th and 1. Because we essentially gave them 9 yards. And not only did we give them 9 yards, but we essentially gave them field goal possession, which allowed them to kick the field goal that essentially put the game away. That forced Miami into a position where instead of being down 1 score and being able to just, go for it, with a chance to win the game, we had to settle for a field goal, get an onside kick. We didn't get the onside kick. So as great as a game plan as Josh Boyer put together, I thought that was a massive failure at the end of the game to have not once, but multiple times just lined up 15, 20 yards off of a receiver. It's just too easy for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offense. You've got to make them earn it in that situation. And if they earn it, great. Good for them. But you go down, making them earn it. To allow them to do it, it's too easy. And you sit there and you go, well, what if we would have played them tight? What if we would have brought the coverage up? Maybe they're looking at a 3rd and long. And then maybe we're getting the ball back with like 3 minutes left, down by 6, and Tua's got a chance to lead a game-winning drive. But we didn't give them that chance because of the play calling on defense. So that was disappointing, and that was bad.
Sure. So I think we're just about ready to put a bow on this game because, at the end of the day, it's like what we said in the very beginning, or it's what we said at the end of the preview show. This was a 4-game playoff, and this, while it would be a great game to win, is the least important of the 4. Now, the Dolphins happen to get a little bit of help with some of the teams that were behind them losing. The Raiders lost. The Patriots lost last week. The Browns are playing the Ravens as we are recording this. I don't know what has happened in that game yet because I'm going to watch it after this show is recorded. But hopefully the Browns can give us some help there and defeat the Ravens, and the Dolphins can hold on to that 7th spot in the playoffs for a little bit longer. But, at this point, the situation is this. Going into these final 3 games of the season, the Dolphins have to beat the New England Patriots. They have to beat the Las Vegas Raiders, and then we'll take stock of Week 17 when we get there. We know that because Buffalo beat Pittsburgh, the AFC East is basically gone unless the Bills lose their next 2 and the Dolphins win the next 2. The Dolphins are not winning the AFC East. So at this point, it's really about focusing on the wild card as far as getting into the playoffs is concerned. And we'll take a look at what that entire situation is when we record our preview show for the Patriots game at the end of this week. So that's it. That's it for this one. Like we've talked about all the narratives. The Dolphins lost the game. That's okay. Where we are now is 8-5, and quite frankly, 8-5 with 3 games to go is, any Dolphin fan would have bit your hand off for that opportunity at the beginning of the season. So here we are, and the Dolphins are still in the thick of it, and they're still developing, and it's a pretty good situation to be in if you are a Miami Dolphin fan. So that's where we are as we head into this week, as we prepare. We're on to New England, baby. We're on to New England. So
we've got a chance. We've got a chance.
That's right.
To end the Patriots dynasty.
This is it. I mean, the Patriots have already, because of Buffalo's win and New England's loss this week, the Patriots cannot win the division. That is gone. So this will be the first time since 2008 the Patriots did not win the AFC East. But we can, and I started this today, and now I want to try to give it a little bit of momentum, like give it a little bit of juice. The Dolphins have the opportunity to hashtag eliminate the Patriots. The Dolphins can eliminate the Patriots from playoff contention on Sunday and also guarantee that the Patriots do not have a winning season. And it would be the first time since like the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s, that the Patriots would have finished a season without a winning record. And the Dolphins, just as they did last year where they had the opportunity to screw the Patriots out of home field advantage, now have the opportunity to eliminate the Patriots. Hashtag eliminate the Patriots. Let's do it on Sunday. We'll be back to preview that game for you later this week. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other. We will talk to you again next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Go Dolphins!